So he got 1/3 disability from the state, but he was still getting paid his money to drive the cat because he could drive the cat with his other hand and
Okay,
two
yeah.
fingers.
Yeah, there is
So he was
that.
like,
It's not going to
he
be a
saw it as a
choker
pay raise.
setter anymore.
He saw it as a pay raise.
Oh, I
So
like my
that's the mentality.
I like my fingers. I'm not. I'm gonna have a really big payday to be happy to lose these. Laughter dances with truth in mostly fictional tales, where reality and fantasy engage in a tango. Welcome to Mostly Fictional Tales. Returning guest Chris Schuring is back, and this time we're heading off into the wild. His days as a lumberjack. Forget the boardrooms and tech labs. This is a life of roaring chainsaws, towering trees, and biker bars where the only rule was don't wreck the place. Chris takes us into a gritty, larger than life chapter of his past, proving that sometimes the tallest stories come from chopping down the tallest trees. Here's the thing, Chris. What you're describing to me is stuff that I kind of grew up with. My dad was an electrical maintenance engineer supervisor dude in the aviation sector. He made screws, fasteners.
Right.
And so
Right.
I grew up my life around cold rolled steel, bundles of wire that gets mashed by header machines, very loud, noisy environments, and making
Right.
screws, making
Yeah.
screws. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
And so my dad was always involved in electrical installations. He had me on a job with him and another friend of his setting up an industrial food processing facility called Snack King down
Okay.
here in Southern California.
Right.
So we had to put in the electrical for some of these huge ovens that had sensor wires for everything along its length, and
Right.
we ended up having to pull 300 individual conductors through
Right.
a 14 gauge. So that wasn't 12
Right.
gauge wire; it was 14 gauge wire through pipe about yay big,
Right.
and get them out to the other side. And in order to do that, we couldn't have 300 spindles of wire. We had to get 6 spindles, really big spindles of 14 gauge wire. And I spent
Right.
a load of time marking each ends of those with a number so that the engineers from Italy could come and reassign those numbers and do up whatever it is that they were going to do on their end.
Yeah.
I remember a big tub of this yellow goop to put on
Yeah.
the thing, and then we ended up. It was a long run. The run to pull the conductors was like 300 yards. It was
Wow.
way long, and
Yeah.
we in order to get the line fished through there. The guy took this lightweight twine and a
Yeah.
shopping bag, and he tied up the shopping bag so that when they hooked up a vacuum to the other side, and they sucked
Right.
the string all the way through
Yeah.
the conduit, all the way
Yeah.
to the other side, and then we pulled through a rope and then a chain so that we could
Yeah.
pull the whole bundle in one pull. And
Yeah.
unluckily, while I was prepping all of this, I had these conductors all lined up on the floor in this big industrial space, and it was bigger than 4,000 feet. I
Right.
don't remember how big. This place was huge,
Right.
apparently an inspector had come through and decided that my temporary setting up of all these conductors was a safety violation because he said somebody in a forklift could come and run over my conductors and damage them, and then that could cause a fire later. And I go, well, that's supposed, but there's no other way to put out 300 conductors and have it
Right.
all ready to go. you have to
Yeah.
do it this way. So that happened. That's a story from my past of being an electrical skilled carpenter dude.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
yeah.
I have a lot of stories I can tell. The couple times I got killed being a lumberjack, those kinds of things. So, there's,
Yeah, I'm wondering what would the set of lumberjack photos.
yeah, yeah,
Were they accurate? Did they feel in the right direction for you?
a couple of them did. Yeah, they were all good. A couple of them did. I didn't. I operated a chainsaw, but I was what was called a choker setter. So what I did is from a lumberjack perspective, I pulled cable for the most part. So I would go around the mountains with 6 cables that were, I think they were 10 feet, 12 feet long, can't remember, but they were 3/4 inch cable. Each one of them weighed 35 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, each one of them weighed 35 pounds. I carry 6 of those, walking around the mountain, and use those to wrap around trees that had been felled.
Okay, I can do the math on
And
that.
then,
That's a lot of weight
yeah,
to be schlepping around. You're not carrying all 6 at once, are you?
yes,
Oh man, you
yeah,
okay. All right. I'm gonna doff my cap to you. Here we go. I'm taking my
yeah,
headset off. I am doffing my cap to you. See, it's off my head.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Literally, I doff my cap to you. You, sir, are
Yeah.
an intense gentleman for having
And,
that experience.
and then you wrap them around a tree. When you wrap them around the tree that's fell, it has it has a loop on one part of the cable, and it has a bell housing, and the other part of the cable has a nubbing on it. And you take the nubbing and you stick it into the bell housing,
Okay.
and the loop you hang it on the back of the caterpillar. So the caterpillar has a 50, 60 yard uh, winch line on it, and the winch line is also 3/4 inch cable
Okay.
with a big hook, about a 10-pound hook.
And this is all
And so you
steel
hook them,
cable.
steel cable,
Yeah.
and so you hook it onto that hook, and then the caterpillar takes all those trees to the landing where the logging trucks are, and then they load them on the trucks at the landing.
One
So I
at a
work out.
time.
Yeah. No, no, it depends. It depends upon the logs. You can hook up a cat with
I'm
three,
imagining
three or
some
four.
big logs.
Right. And that was part of my job, was to gauge how much can the cat pull,
Oh,
right? And
okay.
if I loaded the cat too heavy, the cat would have a hard time getting to the landing. So if I wanted a 3 hour break, I would load the cat heavy, and it would take him an hour and a half to get to the landing, or 2 hours to get to the landing, and an hour to get back, right?
Okay.
If I didn't do that and I loaded him light, then it would only take him an hour to get there and an hour to get back,
Mm,
right? Because he's dragging those logs all the way, could be a mile to
okay. All
where the
right.
trucks are,
Yeah, I'm picking that up. Yeah.
right? And so it depended upon, and if I loaded them too heavy, then everybody gets mad,
Yeah.
right? So then everybody gets pissed off for
Yeah.
2 reasons. One is what two is the cat can't pull them, and the other is you dig a huge trench in the ground, right? So the
Yeah.
excess weight then creates a problem with the landscape.
Yeah.
You start tearing things apart. So it wasn't just a muscle job. They had to use some brains to make sure that everything was being done properly.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
if you didn't do things properly, you could get killed.
yeah.
It was
That's
very highly possible.
one of those cables snapping and whipping around. That'll
It's all
kill you
sorts of
dead.
things. Yeah,
That will
yeah.
kill you dead.
And there's things called widow makers in the trees.
Oh yeah,
Widow
I've
makers
heard
are
of those. Tell me about those.
so widow makers are so when a tree falls and there's a bunch of other trees around, the limbs break off when it falls. Well, when they break off, some of them stay up in the other trees. They get caught up in the limbs of the other trees,
Oh,
right? So if you got a
okay.
tree,
Yeah.
where's
Okay.
my hand out? You got a tree,
Yeah.
and another tree falls, right?
Okay.
And the limbs break off. Some of the limbs get stuck up inside the tree that's still standing.
And they're just waiting to
You're
fall.
just and you're just waiting to fall, and it could take the wind, they could be up there for the next century, or they
Or
could be up
it
there for
could be
30,
that you
30
came around
seconds.
and you vibrated the tree because you're working on it, and something comes down and makes your wife a widow.
Bingo.
Boom.
That's why they're called widowmakers. So you always have to be paying attention to where the trees were fell and what's up. You got to look up and see what's going on. You got to look out for rattlesnakes. You got to
Yeah.
look out for all sorts of things,
And
right?
the rattlesnakes are not up, they're down. So you've got to be your head on a
And they're
swivel, up and
and they're
down, and
generally the snakes are
situational
generally pissed off.
awareness. Yeah.
The snakes are upset. They're not happy
No. Oh, no. No, you're
because you've
messing up their
disturbed their
neighborhood.
homeland. That's
Yeah.
right. You don't
You're
have to
the
worry so much about
invader.
you don't have to worry so much about bears and cougars and those kinds of things because
Oh,
they're more
you're
afraid of
probably
you than
making
you
enough
are.
noise that they're worried about it, so they move away.
No, that's
But
just they're more afraid of you than you are of them.
okay. Yeah.
It's really, I mean, if you see one, it's all you got to do is yell at them or something, generally speaking. And when you're working in the woods like I was, you were not armed. You didn't carry a gun,
Well, it's a
but
hazard. You're probably more likely to shoot yourself, but because you're having to
no,
jump around a lot with it.
no, it's not that. It's just you don't need it. But the other is that you're capable, right? You're not a naive child in the woods, right? I had a knife. I was capable. I was athletic. I was strong, right? I knew what I was doing. I paid attention, right? I'm not a hiker.
But you've met
Spending my
people
afternoon
who are not that,
correct,
and
and
you
they
worked with
get
them.
themselves in trouble, and they get themselves in trouble.
Let's dig into that just a little bit here.
Yeah,
Um,
no problem.
and I'm wondering what the best way to ask the question is. But
Just
you're
ask
working
them.
with dangerous equipment. You've got
Correct.
caterpillars. You've got chainsaws. You've got all cables
Right.
on a job site. Now, maybe I've got a story for you to kind of
Right.
set the stage. I
Right.
had worked for a while with a court reporters company, and I
Right.
was involved in doing a video product for depositions in various lawsuits. And
Right.
so I got to hear the testimony in a lot of civil cases. Very
Right.
interesting for the most part. But there was this a case in which we did about 6 depositions, centering around an accident, that a train accident, a derailment
Right.
that had happened
Right.
sometime somewhere on a north-south line, somewhere in Kentucky or Tennessee. And
Right.
apparently, one of the cars that was at least one of the cars on this
Right.
derailed train was transporting HF.
Okay.
And I'm led to believe that HF is hydrogen fluorine.
Yep.
Are
That's generally what it. Yeah.
right? And so for the
Right.
people at home who I'm telling the story for, hydrogen fluorine is dangerous gas. It's a
Correct.
chemical that we use in industry. So when we need to clean something to an atomic level, we crank out the HF. This stuff is nasty. You do not want
Right.
to be in the same room with an open container of this stuff.
Especially a 7,000-gallon container of it on a rail car.
That's right. So apparently it's explosive. I mean, it does a very valuable job in industry, but it is
Right.
a dangerous chemical. You do not want to mess around with it. So the train had derailed, and the train company trying to clean up and get the line back active because they were losing something like $100,000 an hour
Yep.
that they couldn't put freight on this line. So they're very
Right.
motivated to get this thing cleaned up quickly. So the lawsuit happened that one of the welders was given a go ahead to start uh, using a torch to cut rail cars apart so that they could be re-railed or pulled away so that they could get it all out of the way. And
Right.
there was enough HF left in one of these tanks that the guy went in with his torch, was given a clear set, and it exploded and sent him flying through the air. He
Right.
lived, but he was messed up for the rest of his life.
Right. Right.
And so the depositions were all about the HF. Why was it?
Right.
Why is it explosive? Why is it there? Why is the train company trying to get this cleaned up? Did they cut safety corners because they are losing $100,000 an hour?
Right. Right.
I mean, this is all valid questions. And so the guy got hurt, but the thing is, I never found out what the resolution to the story was. Did he get a settlement? Did he get covered? Did they make sure he had a pension? I don't know. But yeah, the guy got mangled up real bad for an HF explosion. So I'm kind of thinking the same thing as you. Back to your hauling logs. You're doing something dangerous. Has anybody on your watch you've ever seen somebody get hurt? What were they
Yes.
doing?
Well, and so different industries have different mindsets, right?
Yes.
So before I tell you a couple of these stories real quick, the mindset of lumberjacks, the mindset of loggers, for the most part,
Oh, they're rough and ready.
and they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, so
They really even don't really give a whole lot of attention to their own safety.
correct. Well, they do, but
But
they also,
but yeah.
but they realize the situation they're in. So if I'm setting chokers for a cat in the woods, I'm probably 2.5 hours away from any medical assistance.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like, oh, call 911 and they'll be here in 10 minutes. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of injuries that would take place when the people who are there just say, it is what it is. Keep moving on. We got work to do.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Give you an instance. One of the cat skinners was helping a choker setter learn his job. And inadvertently, because the cat moved, the log moved a little bit, he had his fingers underneath the cable. And when he had his fingers underneath the cable, he lost, where's my hand? He lost all these fingers on his hand.
Oh no! He
Come
lost
on.
his thumb and his index fingers.
No,
The other
no,
three.
The other three.
Oh man.
Gone.
Oh man.
But because he knew his situation, what you do in those situations, you take your hand and you stick it in the closest pile of dirt. And the reason why you stick it in the closest pile of dirt is you want to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
Stop the bleeding, wrap it up, and you continue the day's work because there's nothing he can do.
Yeah.
He's not saving his other fingers. It's not going to happen. So he finished his day's work so that he get the job done.
Yeah.
That's the mentality. Right. He went to the hospital later and he's fine. And he went back to driving cat. But he was excited to go back because he got 1/4 disability because he lost 3 of his fingers.
Okay.
So he got 1/3 disability from the state, but he was still getting paid his money to drive the cat because he could drive the cat with his other hand
Okay.
and 2 fingers.
Yeah. There is
So he
that.
was like,
It's not going to
he
be a
saw it as a
choker
pay
setter anymore.
he saw it as a pay raise.
Oh, I
So
like
that's the mentality.
I like my fingers. I'm gonna have to have a really big payday to be happy to lose these.
Right.
I'm
So anyhow,
I'm
that's
glad
the mentality.
I'm glad that guy was happy about it. But I that seems to be pretty raw to me. But but you've never been on a work site in which a cable snapped and took somebody's head off or anything like that.
Well, not their head off, but there was another instance where there was a young guy who was so the hierarchy in the woods is there's a guy named a woods boss, and the woods boss kind of is the guy on the ground in the woods that tells everybody what to do. He's responsible. He's got the hard hat. Everybody wears a hard hat, but he's got he's the guy who's responsible.
Okay.
So the woods boss elder son, I think he was like 21, 22 at the time, was going to college to get a degree in forestry because that's what the family did. They got degrees in forestry and became woods bosses and that kind of stuff. And this kid was next to the landing, so he wasn't too far away, but he's next to the landing, and he was doing some work to move some logs around. And one of the cat skinners had a blade on his cat. And a blade hit a tree. Well, when the blade hit the tree, it knocked the tree down. And when the tree came down, it hit the kid in the leg.
Oh!
It took his leg off.
Oh!
Crushed his leg.
Nah! Ow! Ow!
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. There's no saving it. So they rushed him to the hospital. They life flighted him out and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
He can no longer work in the woods. He's done.
F.
Right.
Oh
You
man.
gotta remember, this is 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So I was a lumberjack 40 years ago. He's done. Right. Never saw him again. He survived, but he now has no leg from the hip down.
Yeah. He's not going to be able to drive a cat because he's going to need both legs for braking and.
You can't steer and everything. You can't. So he's done. He went to get a death job or something.
What a raw deal.
Now the cables, when they break, they don't break like. Let me give you an example. This is a cable, right? We got here. This is a cable, right?
Yeah.
And a cable is made of a whole bunch of strands that are woven together to make a rope, right? Like hundreds of steel strands to make a rope. Well, when it breaks, it doesn't just break and go, okay, that's done. It breaks and does this.
Oh, so it almost explodes.
Right. The end of the cable, if there's nothing holding those strands together, they unwind. So when they unwind, they spider, they expand, right?
Okay.
Because of the tension in the cable.
So it's like it's got a cross section now that is bigger, so that if it was whipping through the air and it was not unwoven, it might not hit people, but since it's woven out, it's like a tennis racket, right? It'll hit everything that's in the way.
It's like an octopus on steroids track, right?
Scheisse.
Yeah, and so there was a person that got a cable snapped, but it doesn't happen instantaneously, right? Everything's a process. So the cable snapped, hit him in the face. When it hit him in the face, it spidered when it hit him in the face.
Ah!
When it hit him in the face, it's now attached to 30 yards of cable.
Okay.
So his face is now attached to 30 yards of cable.
And that's unwinding.
Not only is it unwinding, but it's attached to the back of a caterpillar, and that 30 yards of cable weighs several hundred pounds.
Oh.
You're not getting up from that. So basically they had to hold him down to the ground while they cut some of that cable. Because they couldn't you can't take him to the hospital with 30 yards of cable stuck in his face.
They got it's kind of like an arrow sticking out of you. You're going to have to, like,
So they had to get a torch out, and the torch then heats up the cable, so you got to cool the cable while they're cutting the blah, 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 blah.
And they're trying to cut it as short as they can, and it's stuck on him, and he can't. Every time they move it, it's causing him pain, and
the only way you're going to get it out of his face is with surgery.
Oh, wow.
You can't, just pull it out.
No.
Not going to happen.
All right, so this guy got, major, facial scars from this.
Not only facial scars, he lost his eye. He lost everything on. I can't remember whether it was the right or the left, but anyhow, that side of his face was completely whacked.
Dangerous work. Dangerous work.
And so he ended up the rest of his life getting disability and sitting around bars drinking himself into a stupor.
Well,
just drinking every day.
Well, he got hit by a cable in his face. I mean, hey,
but that's the.
You know what? We should buy that man a drink.
Yeah. So anyhow, there's things that take place that those things happen, right? And but the mentality is life goes on and you keep.
Well, the work doesn't get done unless you do, and I admire that. I'm not quite sure I can testify that I am anywhere near that kind of blasé about stuff. So my
It's not
respect
it's not
for
necessarily
the lumberjacks.
blasé. It's really about you signed up to get a job done, and you got to get the job done. And if you can't do the job, you need to leave.
That's probably something that whenever you're interviewing for people, you want people who are motivated by the teamwork aspect of the job and not just
And it's a
being out
brotherhood.
nowhere. Yeah.
It's a brotherhood. We all look out for each other. We're all paying attention. It's a brotherhood. Nobody's out to kill each other and those kinds of things. There are practical jokes and pranks that are played on people, but it's nothing that's necessarily life threatening or anything. But it's a brotherhood. It's like a biker gang, right? The guys I worked with. We partied together. We went to bars together. And when there were six of us that went to a bar, and one of them, there was one guy was 6'9". He was a faller,
Okay.
and we go into a bar.
He was a
We do whatever we want.
faller. Is that a lumberjack term or am I?
Yeah, faller is the guy who cuts the trees down.
Oh, okay. So he's actually on the saw. He's getting sawdust sprayed at him all day. He's all. I'm
Well,
not happy unless I'm covered in a couple of inches of sawdust.
just take a picture of this guy. He was, I think, 6'8", 6'9", Portuguese. Had 13 kids.
Okay.
Okay. He carried around a 36-inch blade, 10 horsepower McCulloch chainsaw.
Okay. My arms are already tired just hearing about it.
Right.
Yeah.
A split an axe and a couple balls. A
This guy
gallon of water,
deserves.
a gallon,
This guy
gallon of
sounds like
gas.
he deserves a large blue bull to, or a
Right.
large blue oxen to follow him around, right?
And his skill was dropping trees where they were supposed to be dropped. Right.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
what he did.
That's
That
a
was his
skill.
job.
That's a skill.
Right.
Oh, I know
The guy
enough to
probably
know
had
that
a,
that's a skill.
the guy probably had a third grade education.
Well,
Was a great guy unless you made him mad
uh-oh.
or you tried to tell him how to do his job because he was just a big bear of a man. He ate like okay, his lunch pail. You know those old style lunch pails that you'd see like dads carrying around. They're the kind of the silo looking type of lunch pails, right?
Yeah.
His was two of those bolted together because one of them couldn't hold enough food for him.
Oh, he's burning a lot of calories. That is going to be a
And he's
guarantee.
huffing around. He's got all that gear he's carrying around. He's huffing around a mountain 12, 14 hours a day.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Oh,
calories to do all of that.
and he was a great guy. If he was
Don't make
your
him
friend, he was a
mad,
great
though.
guy.
Don't
him
go
mad.
around trying to poke the bear. The bear has
His
claws.
hand, his hands were bigger than both of our heads put together. I mean, he was just a bear of a man, right?
Okay.
No.
Huge
But anyhow,
Portuguese man.
those are the kind of people you work with in that environment. And then after work, everybody goes out and has a drink. Keep in mind, when I was doing that, I was 17.
Oh, okay. So you're not actually legal to drink these alcoholic
But
beverages.
nobody ever said no.
Well, you know what? If you're in the army, that's probably the same thing. Hey, if you're on base, go ahead and get drunk. If we're gonna have you, risk your life for something, you might as well also have a drink.
Right. Well, you walk into a bar after work with a bunch of lumberjacks. Everybody knows who we are. No, no hiding. We're not like dressed up. We didn't take showers. We went from the job site to the bar.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I had back in the Snack King story. And I was doing rehearsals for theater afterwards, and so I would go and do all of this electrical work at Snack King, and then miss showering on my way to the theater. And having the ladies have words with me saying you stink because what can I do? I'm trying to earn money here, honey, and
Yeah.
all right, I get it.
Well, you got to also keep in mind the bars we were going into wasn't Applebee's.
Ah, yes, okay.
These were hole-in-the-wall biker bars.
These are places that they put their Yeah.
And when you walk in and you're dressed like that with six other guys, and I wasn't necessarily the smallest guy, but at that time I was 6'1", 200 pounds, pretty fit. And the biggest guy was this guy who was 6'8", right? And everybody knew who we were, not from personality, but the way we were dressed and so forth. And you frequent the same bars all the time,
Yeah.
right? So everybody knows you. You walk in and they just don't destroy the bar. We'll give you whatever you want. You got to pay cash. Just don't
Don't break up stuff.
Was,
We'll make sure you've had a good time here, and just no trouble
no
here,
trouble.
but respect, loads of
That's
respect, right. Man.
That's right. That's right. So that was one of my lives out of high school kind of thing. That was one of my lives.
All right.
I did that for a while.
So you did not continue as being a lumberjack. How many years did you do that? So like when you were 17. So this would have been like your first job.
Wasn't my first job. Before that, I worked in a slaughterhouse. But
yeah. Okay. Okay.
I worked there until they had what was called a moratorium at the time, and a lot of small logging companies weren't getting any new work because they weren't building any homes.
Okay.
And
so a slowdown in the
going.
need for wood, nationally.
So I was laid off.
Okay.
Laid off, and I rode a motorcycle back then. So I got on my motorcycle and drove to the Bay Area. San Francisco Bay Area, San Jose, Sunnyvale to be particular. And I was driving there to meet my cousins because my cousins lived in Sunnyvale at the time. And I got there on a Friday. By Monday, I had a job and I never left.
Well, there we go.
I got a job making more than I did as a lumberjack, working in the computer industry and doing other things.
And which would lead you to be at Atari at some point.
That's correct.
There we go.
And so I wasn't risking my life anymore, and I just had to change my attitude because I came in with a different kind of attitude, and I had to kind of get into corporate life and that kind of stuff.
Because that doesn't work as being a lumberjack when you're wandering around with a manila folder trying to get signatures on things.
You get your butt kicked. People will hurt you if you do that.
They don't want the lumberjacks in the office.
No. Well, as a lumberjack, you have a way of dealing with things very abruptly and aggressively.
Gruff.
You can't do that. You can't do that in corporate life.
Yeah. You got to say please and thank you sometimes. Whereas whenever you're up against the redwoods, you're up against the pines. They don't need you to ask please or thank you before you chop them down. So
no. So anyhow, I've led lots of different lives. Actually, the other day, somebody called me a polymath, and I had to look it up to see what it really meant. I kind of got an idea what it meant.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. But basically, the synonym to that would be Renaissance man. So somebody called me a polymath, which means that I have done a lot of things and learned a lot of things about it.
I've not done a lot of math, so that would not be true for me. But
yeah. Well, it's not a mathematical equation. It's not a mathematical statement. It's a statement of experience. So anyhow.
Well, you are definitely a Renaissance man. I am thrilled to do a deeper dive on your book and whatnot. This here, folks, this is Chris Schuring. He is the author of The Broken Line, and it is a brand new book. It's been out a month, and he's now a published author. And we have not talked at all about his book. He's had so many interesting things to say. But this has been Mostly Fictional Tales, where today the tales you've heard, I'm pretty sure that they're not fiction at all. What is fiction is all of the artwork that we have produced for the background here and for our marquee image. But, if you like what we do here on Mostly Fictional Tales, you can help out in a couple of different ways. Like, share, and subscribe. They don't cost you anything, and they do support this channel. But if you're a real difference maker, head over onto Patreon. Your captain needs your $5. I cannot do this show without you. Until next time, I have been your Captain Rathgar, and I advise you all, you be good. But if you cannot be good, don't be caught.